How's it going, troops? Jordan here, back again with another video, and it's been some time, it has. I've been cracking down on getting some uni stuff done, and about a couple of months away before I actually finish this year of uni, which means I've got a nice long summer, although for most of the time during the summer I'm going to be spending that working on assets and textures and stuff in regards to what's going to happen in the second year, so I've got a busy schedule ahead by the looks of it, but I am back again with another video, and I don't know whether you can tell, but I sound really sick because I am sick. I've been ill for the last couple of days, and I've got friends that have been ill as well, so hanging around them has not been too good for me either, but I'm sure I'll be able to make it through this video. So it's roughly around this time of year where we're going to be getting our first teaser for the next Battlefield game. And I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited for what DICE have been working on ever since Battlefield 4, because we all know the disappointment that Battlefield 4's launch was. So hopefully they're gonna, fix it this time around and get it right. And going all the way back to early February 2011, we had our first teaser trailer for Battlefield 3. And around mid-March in 2013, that's when we had our first teasers for Battlefield 4. And right now we're a few days away before the end of February, and we haven't got any teasers in regards to the next Battlefield game, so I can only assume that next month we are definitely going to be getting a teaser for Battlefield 5 or Battlefield 2016. And it's because of the announcement or teaser of the next Battlefield game and the fact that it's pretty much imminent now. I wanted to get this wish list or ideas for the next Battlefield game out of the way in a video. So I've got a list of ideas and things I'd like to have. I guess you could call it a wish list, if you will. It's things that I would love to see be in the next Battlefield game. So before I go into it, I just want to say that I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with this fully. Some people will agree, some people won't. But this is my wish list, and let's get into it. So first up is that I want it to be military themed. Now, we already know that it is going to be military themed, but when I mean military themed, I mean something similar to what Battlefield 3 has, where we're fighting as the Marines or the Russians and not like an underdog squad like we saw in Battlefield 4. I would also like to see a true campaign. Now, what I mean by this is, I mean something similar on the lines of what Bad Company 2 had, where it wasn't just a few missions and oh look, let's head into multiplayer. No, it was a very well scripted and thought out campaign that a lot of people loved and liked. Battlefield 3 did this really well in terms of having a variety of different missions in the campaign, but in terms of the character development, I didn't really feel connected to the characters, apart from maybe, I don't know, Montez or Vladimir or Blackburn, but in terms of in Battlefield 4, whilst the campaign was very lacking since it only had 7 missions, the character development in that game was brilliant. I really felt for a lot of the characters in that game, such as Irish, Pack, Dima, Hannah, Wrecker, and so on and so forth. So incorporating that nice long campaign with a variety of missions involved, as well as great character development, combining all 3 of those things together, and voila, you have an amazing campaign ready to play. So hopefully DICE have listened to what the fans want and they make a great campaign experience. Next up on my list is to bring back co-op missions. Back in Battlefield 3 we had I think about 6 missions that were cooperative, and they were very, very fun. They were based off the campaign, but they were very separate. If you imagine Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3 Spec Ops, it's pretty much done in that way, where it's in regards to the campaign, so it's brought into the campaign, but it's separate in its own way. A few months ago I was playing some of the co-op missions in Battlefield 3 with my good friend and fellow YouTuber, Good Helvetica, and we were messing around with the co-op missions in Battlefield 3 on the Xbox 360, and we had an absolute fun time messing around, co-piloting and piloting helicopters, sneaking around the level and taking out enemies using our stealth abilities, and so on and so forth. So it was really, really fun, and we had a lot of banter and a lot of fun playing those missions. So hopefully DICE are going to bring back the co-op missions. I don't know why they didn't bother to bring it back in Battlefield 4, but hopefully this time round they will bring it back in this year's Battlefield game. Next up on my list is Battlefield 4 camo customization. Now, I really like the camos in Battlefield 4 because they gave you such a great variety to choose from. However, there was an exception with this, and that was the adaptive category. Basically what the adaptive category was that it didn't matter what map you were playing on, you basically chose the pattern of your choice and automatically the game will go, okay, you're playing on this map and therefore this map matches up with this camo, so here you go. So it basically did the camouflaging for you, and because it automatically did this, it meant that apart from the miscellaneous category, the rest of the categories were pretty much pointless because the game will automatically choose the camouflage for you, and all you had to do was choose a pattern if you went with the adaptive category. So just remove the adaptive category but keep the miscellaneous categories, the desert category, the snow category, the woodland category, and all the other categories of camouflage in the game. Moving on to the next thing on my list, and that is Battlefield 3 weapon customization. Now bear in mind that this is my opinion and my opinion only, so don't take this the wrong way, but in my opinion I feel that there are too many optics and way too many attachments that you can use in Battlefield 4, and not only does this make this for harder balancing, but it also makes for harder understanding. In Battlefield 3, the most that you could get out of your weapon was an optic, a foregrip and a laser sight, and that was pretty much as most as you could get. I mean, you didn't have a variety of foregrips, you didn't have a variety of laser sights or flashlights, you didn't have so many optical sights or anything like that. It was basically just you pick an optic out of a few. Here you go, you can pick a foregrip or a Picatinny rail, and here's a laser sight if you want to have it. And for me, this made the game not only easier to balance, but it also made it a lot easier for the player to understand. So listen here DICE, simplicity is better. Next thing on my list, take out counter knifing. Oh my god. So in Battlefield 3, you could basically just go up and you could knife someone and you could take their dog tags. No problem whatsoever. However, in Battlefield 4, for some reason, a lot of people complained about people knifing in Battlefield 3, and DICE took it upon them to take this feedback and implement a new feature called counter knifing, where basically if you were facing forward an enemy front on and you went and go up to knife the guy, he had an option to counter knife. So for me, if I'm playing on the Xbox, I think it's press B and you can counter knife, and it was simple as that. The enemy could just press one button and automatically you've lost that fight just because the guy has pressed the counter knifing button. And it's because of this in Battlefield 4 that knifing just isn't worth it anymore, just because of how easy it is for someone to counter knife. So DICE, just remove counter knifing please, just don't put it in this next game. It's not worth it, it ruins the fun of knifing, and I just don't like it, just remove it. The next thing on my list is bring back jet runways. Now this was in Battlefield 3 and might have been in previous Battlefield games, I'm not too sure. But this was definitely in Battlefield 3, and basically you would, if you were going to go into a jet, you would have to go onto the runway and you would have to slowly move forward until you could take off into the skies. Now this was really fun and made the game very immersive, as if I was an actual soldier taking off on a runway. However, there was one problem with this, and that problem was the enemy spawn trapping the base. So for example, let's say if I hop into an attack helicopter or an attack jet, I can easily go over to the enemy's base and destroy their helicopters, destroy their jets, so they can't get off the runway or they can't launch in their base. And this caused so much aggravation and just so annoying to be spawn trapped, and the fact that you're basically being dominated in the skies because you can't even take off. And it's because of this that DICE took it upon them to remove jet runways completely from Battlefield 4 and just make it so that way you spawn in a jet in the sky automatically. Now sure, this fixed the issue, but I'd rather have DICE bring back the jet runways because it made the game so more immersive when spawning in a jet on the runway and then slowly taking off before heading into the sky. However, if they did bring it back, then they'll have the spawn trapping problem again. So how can they prevent the spawn trapping problem? It's very simple. Just put the jet runways far outside the map, so that way by the time any enemy air vehicle can go towards the jet runways, they would automatically die because of the 10-second countdown and they would kill themselves basically. So by doing that, not only do you eliminate spawn trapping, but you also allow for the jet runways to come back and make the game feel more immersive again as a jet pilot. The next thing on my list is to include more factions. Now usually in Battlefield games you have 2 factions, however in Battlefield 4 we saw the introduction of 3 factions, being the Russian side, the US side and the Chinese side. So the only question is, what is stopping DICE from including more factions? I mean DICE, can we please see the UK come into the game? Can we see like a fictional terrorist faction come into the game? I mean sure, it does seem a bit far-fetched, but with the death of Medal of Honor, including more factions might be something beneficial for the Battlefield franchise. Moving on to the next item on my list, AA vehicles or anti-air vehicles. If you're a huge Battlefield player, then you're probably cringing right now as I say anti-air vehicles. And to be honest, I would not blame you one bit, because in my opinion, the anti-air vehicles are so fucking annoying. Like, they just take out enemy aircraft in a split second, making going into the air vehicles pretty much pointless, because you kind of expect someone to be in an anti-air vehicle and you'll be taken out in what, a couple of seconds, which is just absolutely frustrating as hell. Now, I can understand why they included anti-air vehicles into Battlefield 4, because of how many people that literally camp air vehicles. You know, we all come across players that love to just continuously play in a jet or continuously play in a helicopter non-stop, and they don't ever bother going onto the ground, they don't ever bother going into any other vehicles. They just like to dominate the skies and just kill as many people as they can, and a lot of players get frustrated by those type of players. So I can understand why the AA vehicles were included. However, they are just too powerful to use, and they'll just take out your helicopter or your jet in a matter of a few seconds. So my advice to you, DICE, is to nerf it or just completely remove it from this next Battlefield game. The next thing on my list is better map design. Now, DICE, please listen to what I have to say about this. Make less vertical maps like we saw in Battlefield 3 and even Bad Company 2 and maybe even Battlefield games before then, rather than the vertical maps that we see in Battlefield 4. Because as a player, I like to look what's in front of me, what's to the left of me, what's to the right of me, and obviously what's behind me. The last thing I want is to be looking at 50 odd directions from above just because of extremely high skyscrapers or extremely high structures or buildings that players can easily access. I mean, tell me this, how many times have you just gone into Battlefield 4 and you just started running around and then all of a sudden, bam, you get picked off by either a sniper or by some other weapon out of nowhere, and then you look at where the enemy were when they killed you and they're either on some high structure or some high building. It is seriously absolutely frustrating. Now, if we take a look at maps in Battlefield 3, I mean, sure, there's some verticality to them maps, like for example in Damaran Peak or in Caspian Border, but for the most part, all you've got to focus on is what's in front of you, what's to the left, what's to the right, and what's behind you. Now, here's a fun fact for you guys. In Battlefield 3, the maps were made by level designers and then they were handed over to the artists so that they could polish up the aesthetics of the map. However, when it came to Battlefield 4, it was completely switched around, where we have the artists designing and drawing the map, and then the level designers will come in afterwards to try and make it playable. And by doing this, not only did they make the gameplay off-putting, but the maps are also a lot less memorable and fun to play on. Think about the maps in Battlefield 3. Operation Metro, Caspian Border, Damaran Peak, Operation Firestorm, Karg Island, Grand Bazaar and Noshar Canals. Those map names that I have just said are 7 out of the 9 multiplayer base maps in Battlefield 3. Now, this doesn't mean to say that Sian Crossing and Tehran Highway are bad maps, but the 7 that I have mentioned are the 7 that stand out the most when I think of Battlefield 3. These maps were absolutely great to play on. Whereas if we take a look at the maps in Battlefield 4, we have maps like Langkang Dam, Flood Zone, Zavod 311, Dawnbreaker, etc, etc. So here's a question to Battlefield fans, those that have played both Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. Which maps are far more memorable and far more fun to play on? The maps that I've listed in Battlefield 3 or the maps that I've listed in Battlefield 4? It's pretty obvious that Battlefield 3 is the winner out of that question. Also, one thing that I would like to see is maps that are made specifically for a certain game mode, just like what we've seen in previous Battlefield games. If we take a trip all the way back into Bad Company 2, we'll take a look at some maps like Arica Harbour, Atacama Desert, Isla Inocentes and Port Valdez. We can see that these maps were pretty much catered to the Rush game mode, and that made these maps extremely fun to play on when it came to Rush. Now, sure, you could play other game modes on these maps, but these maps were pretty much specifically set up for the Rush game mode. It's pretty obvious. If we go to Battlefield 3 and we take a look at maps like Damaran Peak, Caspian Border and Noshar Canals, these maps were catered for their own different game type. So Damaran Peak was pretty much made for the Rush game mode, Caspian Border was made for the Conquest mode, and obviously Noshar Canals was made for Team Deathmatch. Now, that doesn't mean that I like to see maps that are only focused on one specific game mode, but as we can tell from the maps in previous Battlefield games, it's pretty obvious that those maps were a lot more memorable when they were catered to one specific game mode rather than catering to all. So now that I've covered map design, it's time to move on to a feature that was included in Battlefield 4's maps, and that is LEVOLUTIon. Now, I'm going to be honest, I really liked the idea of LEVOLUTIon. I really liked the idea of these greatly scripted events that a skyscraper could collapse or a levee could burst open and the whole map could be flooded. However, there is one issue that I have with it, and that is these events are player controlled. The amount of times that I head into Battlefield 4's multiplayer and the map Siege of Shanghai comes along or the map Flood Zone comes along, and within 5 minutes of that match starting, the skyscraper in Siege has collapsed, or the levee wall has destroyed and the map is completely flooded in Flood Zone. And this makes LEVOLUTIon more annoying than something fun. So my solution is that instead of making the LEVOLUTIon player controlled, just make it a scripted event that occurs towards the end of the match, like the radio antenna that we saw in Battlefield 3's Caspian Border. Or if you're playing certain game modes like the Rush game mode, the JDAM strike opening up the subway in Battlefield 3's Operation Metro. So I'm totally fine with the idea of LEVOLUTIon, but do not make it player controlled. Just have it as a scripted event that occurs either towards the end of the game or at a certain point in the match. The next thing on my list is do not bring back Commander mode. So we saw this with Battlefield 2 and it came back into Battlefield 4. Now sure, some of the long-time Battlefield fans might go, oh yay, Commander mode's back, woohoo, this is fantastic. However, when it came to actually playing Battlefield 4 with Commander mode, having a commander on the enemy team was oh so frustrating as fuck. There's nothing more frustrating than getting killed by someone who isn't even in the game, by either a cruise missile or just the fact that an enemy can know where your exact location is because the enemy team's commander is constantly calling in UAVs. So my solution to this is to either reassess and fix Commander mode or just completely remove this feature altogether. Moving on to the next thing on my list, and that is Battle Packs. Now personally, I'm not that bothered if they return or not, but I would prefer to have a normal unlocking system like in Battlefield 3. The penultimate thing on my list, now this is a really important question, and that is, does Battlefield 5 need more game modes? I mean, think about it, does anyone play Defuse or Obliteration? Whenever I try and get into those game modes, no one's playing them. Everyone's playing either Conquest, they're playing TDM, or they're playing Rush. Those are the three main game modes that people play, and barely anyone is playing Defuse or Obliteration. Now, having new game modes are really fun and exciting to try out for the first time, but you don't want to split the player base up too much, and also you do not want to be wasting memory by including new game modes where a few months down the line no one is going to play them. So having more game modes in Battlefield 5 personally would be a waste of time, and I think they should just stick to what they have, maybe even reduce some of the game modes that was in Battlefield 4 in this next Battlefield game. And finally, I've saved the best till last, the last point on my list, DICE. Listen here now, DICE. Please, 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 bring back the M16A3 from Battlefield 3 into this year's Battlefield game. I will be so happy and grateful if you bring this amazing weapon back into this year's Battlefield game. So DICE, please bring back the M16A3. That is all. So this concludes my wish list, solutions and ideas in regards to the next Battlefield game that's going to be coming out later on this year. I know this video is probably going to be a bit long to listen to, but hopefully you've enjoyed it and hopefully you've taken upon some of these ideas that I have on my wish list, and maybe you have your own ideas or wish list that you would like to tell me in the comment section below. But hopefully you have enjoyed this video nonetheless. If you did, then do give the video a thumbs up, I would appreciate it a lot. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, then make sure to do so for more Battlefield content. And until the next video, I thank you all for watching, stay tuned, new troops, and I'll see you in game.